What's up, guys? Welcome back to Lakeview Car Channel. Today we're going to be getting into the wiring of the 240SX. So what we just started doing, kind of started doing it, and then we went, oh, maybe we should film this. So we got the fender off, and we're starting to just pull all the rest of the stock harness out of here, because we're just going to, this is going to be a track car at the end of the day, so we're just going to run bare bones, like headlights, taillights, fuel pump, and just the essentials. So we already started pulling this stuff out, and a lot of these wires already wore through from somebody else lowering the car, and the tire starts to eat the wires. So, and not to mention all this was in a fire, so who knows what's crossed and what's not. So we're gonna start getting rid of all this. I'm gonna try and save, obviously, the headlight harnesses, and try and, you know, label those and keep them. That way I can just reuse all the factory plugs and whatnot. But yeah, we're gonna get at it. Alright, so we've got the harness ripped out from the core support and up to the fuse box. And like I said, we're just gonna get rid of this and run a minimal amount of fuses. So just gonna get this last bolt out. And there it is. Through those cutters.
Bing. Bada boom. I said boom. There we go. Just like that, and it's attached to all of the harness.
Pretty incredible.
To those of you that tuck this harness underneath your dashboard, just props, man. I don't even know what to tell you. I would be scared doing all of that under my dash. So if you tuck this,
Good job.
good job.
Alright, so I lied a little bit. There's definitely still more stock wiring back here. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna tear all that out too. Sorry. Alright guys, it's a new day. Coming out with a fresh mind. I'm going to make a block-off plate for where the AC lines used to go through. That way I can mount my, my battery post bulkheads here. So, if you'll notice, I made a little template. These are the holes on the car. I just traced those from the other side, and then I kind of found something circular, made a little template. This should be perfect. I'm gonna cut this out of this steel right here, and we'll probably end up just riveting it onto the car. I don't really care about needing to remove it or anything. It's not a big deal. So, but I also can't really get the welder in there. So riveting's a good in-between for me. I'm gonna go ahead and cut this out, transfer it onto the steel, and we'll get cracking. So guys, we got our two holes drilled out here for our battery pass-throughs. They fit perfect, so I'm gonna go ahead and cut this out with an angle grinder, just clean it up a little bit, and then we'll drill a couple holes in the middle, a couple holes in the car, and we'll just pop rivet it in, and that'll be that. Alright guys, so it's not perfect. I'll probably just clean it up a little bit, and then we'll put the two bulkheads in here. I'm actually gonna put it in from the inside of the car, and we'll put two little pop rivets, maybe 4 if I'm feeling it. And yeah, that'll hold it in, and we should be able to start running all the wires for the ECU and the starter and all that good stuff. Alright guys, so there's our fuse panel mounted up, and there's the rest of the harness hanging out. There's our two main power cables that go back to the battery. As you can see, I ran a few wires down to that main power relay, and that is basically just so that when I turn the key on, then it sends power to the fuse block, because everything coming off of this I want to be switched, not constant. If I need something constant, well, there's the stud right there. So yeah. So we're installing the new starter that I ordered. After that, we're gonna run power to the injectors. We're gonna run power for the ignition coils. Then we gotta run a couple more wires, and we should be able to start it. So we're getting there. Hey guys, so you'll notice I took my ECU back apart, and all the wiring is in shambles at the moment. Lots has happened since we last talked. We were wiring up a bunch of stuff. I already had an existing harness and a set of coil packs from before it caught fire, but nothing really looked, burnt or melted to me. So we put the coil packs on the motor, and we started running the power and ground for it, and I set up all the fuses and such, and I turned the key over, and I just wired up a quick key just so we can test the relay and the fuses and all that. And as soon as I turned it on, the coil pack fuse blew. I was like, well, that's not good. So we start messing around a little bit, testing them one by one. I think they're all just bad by just a little bit, and when you get them all together, they just ground out enough to trip the fuse. So that's something I gotta look into, new coil packs. Other thing I didn't notice, but every time we were turning the key on, it was blowing the ECU fuse, which is only 3 amps. And at this point I'm kind of freaking out, because this was sort of expensive, and I spent a lot of time putting it together. So, tried it like 3 times, and each time it blew the fuse. So I popped this open to go ahead and look around, see if I could find anything obviously wrong. And, well, if you remember that resistor I had to solder in when we were talking about this the first time, well, when I soldered it in, I forgot to clip the leads off the bottom. So they were just grounding out to the case. So let's hope that was the problem. I'm gonna, this is real time, we haven't tested this yet. I'm gonna just hook up the main harness and see if I can power it up and if it blows a fuse. So let's make sure this fuse is good. That's a good fuse. Am I grounding on anything? No. Key. Key. Okay, so I think that was it. So we're gonna go ahead and go forward and start loading the software on this thing and start getting everything figured out.
Yeah, so we have a tuner studio here. This is the tuning software that we are going to use on the Mega Squirt. That's what they support. So this is what we're doing right now. Is since this is a brand new ECU, we got to update its firmware and load on all of its processes for it to tell us on these screens, on these gauges, what it's doing, so that we know and we can adjust here, all up in there. So what we're doing here is we're getting the ECU powered on. I'm going to start loading this firmware. As we load the firmware, we're going to finish up the wiring, and hopefully we'll be able to load the tune file that I had saved before the car burnt down, load up the tune file on it, and we should be able to just turn the key and have it start right up. Fingers crossed. So we're not getting communication with the ECU that Liam put together. So this is our old burnt one, as you can tell if you look in there. I mean, it got roached pretty bad, but you'll notice Liam's going in and putting in these 2 transistors over here. We have them in this ECU, and obviously we know this ECU was a good unit at one point, obviously not anymore. So we're going ahead and we're putting those transistors in, and I think he's got another diode in there that he's got to put in as well, that either just got missed in the instructions or whatnot. So this is the downside of doing an MS3 or a Mega Squirt DIY kit. is if you do have problems with the ECU board, you have to go through and kind of figure out what you did or did not do. There's a form, there's multiple forms to help you out, but it does kind of suck sometimes. But yeah, that's our old burnt down ECU. She got pretty toasty in there. But yeah, we'll get back to you guys. Hopefully we have some communication soon.
All right, so the last clip you just saw was from about 5 days ago. Lots has happened in the meantime. So the communication issue ended up just being the USB cord we were using. It was the wrong one. Like the plugs were the right ones, but the cable itself just doesn't work for some reason. So we bought another one off the DIY Auto Tune website. Works great. I loaded my tune onto the Mega Squirt. That's all cool. We are still having an issue where when you plug in the second harness that controls the spark and fuel and that sort of thing, it just blows the fuse right away. Did some digging on the ECU with a little multimeter and stuff, and we're actually getting 11 volts out of the pins that should be ground on the card. So I emailed DIY Auto Tune, gonna see if maybe that's something I can fix, or maybe the card's just dead and they can send me a new one. Other than that, what else have we done? I started running some other wires, but more importantly, I kind of just got frustrated with the ECU and stuff, so we decided to start cranking the motor over to try and prime the lines for the oil cooler. And in doing that, I was like, well, hey, we're cranking the engine over a bunch, we might as well compression test it. So if you don't know, that's where you take all the spark plugs out and you thread this into the spark plug hole, have the throttle wide open, and obviously make sure your fuel injectors or nothing like that's hooked up. And you try to start the engine, get about 6 revolutions, and this gauge will tell you how much PSI that cylinder averages. Well, I think cylinders 1 through 4 were like 120, and then cylinder 5 was like 100, and then cylinder 6 was like 40. So, and the spark plug had a little rust on it. So I'm thinking it probably blew, the head gasket probably melted a bit when it was in the fire. So not the best news, but I think we're probably gonna wrap up the wiring video here because we can't do much else. That's all gonna get put on hold while we go through the engine. So. Alright guys, so that pretty much wraps up the video for today. Thanks again for watching, but before we go, 2 things. One, you may wonder why we're called the Lakeview Car Channel. Well, if you look behind me, we have this beautiful lake view of Carter Lake. And right behind the camera is the shop where we work on all the cars. So it's pretty awesome. Open up the garage. So, other thing, I'm sure you've noticed this fine gentleman here. His name is Dominic Bucci, and he's one of my best friends that always helps me with cars and stuff like that. He has a lot of knowledge and experience with me. And This is his 89 240SX that we just got running. Bucci, if you want to tell us a thing or two.
Yeah, so this is, like Liam said, this is my 89 240SX. I had one of these as my first car. I had a 1990 coupe with this single overhead cam KA24E. These motors, not a lot of people do a whole lot with them. Performance-wise, they're kind of the bastard child of Nissan motors. So that being said, I'm going to turbocharge this because people don't want me to do it, so I'm going to. Overall, this motor is actually out of a truck, a Nissan hardbody or D21. Figured that out as I was putting it together and put the transmission on. Found out this is a truck motor, so it's got a little bit lower compression. A couple other things are a little bit different. But other than the engine, this car is actually really, really clean besides paintwork. We do have some slight body damage, but as all S14 or S13 owners know, if you look inside this interior, you'll see no cracks on that dashboard. So it's very nice to have a nice uncracked dash, clean interior, S13. My first one I blew up the motor, I put in a dual cam, and then I blew that one up. Just being a dumb 16-year-old kid trying to drift a 240 with an open diff. So I sold that, I got rid of that, picked up a Buick Century of all vehicles, drove around for a while and picked this guy up out of Colorado. And I've been happy with it. Just got it running not too long ago. Been driving it for about 2 weeks. But that's just a quick overview of my 89 240SX hatchback.
And obviously needs some modifications. So in the future, we'd like to do a couple videos on Bucci's car. I think the first thing he wants to put some blast pipes on it, some ISR blast pipes. So that'll be an upcoming video. Not sure after that, but I'm sure it'll be on the channel. You'll see more of it. So thanks again for watching, guys. Really appreciate it. Please hit the like button. It helps us out a lot. Subscribe if you like, and leave a comment of your first cool car that you had, or maybe your dream car. So thanks, guys.